Hey there, Cannon here from MoreTech. I went ahead and wrote up some code on how to handle object counting with the Arduino. The difficult part about this problem is not necessarily the counting, but the storing of that value. Because with Arduino, if you're just counting and storing it into a local variable or printing it into the serial monitor, that number goes away as soon as the Arduino gets turned off or as soon as you reopen the serial monitor. So that's not really useful if you're trying to count how many utensils are put into something over the course of a day or a week or however long. So this code uses something called the EEPROM. It's basically non-volatile memory on the Arduino that we can store stuff in, and it's going to stay there no matter what happens unless we write over it. So I'm going to quickly show you this code, how you would use it and set it up, and just talk a little bit about how this would work. So for sensors and things, I'm using an ultrasonic sensor and the Arduino Uno. This is actually a remix of the MOREbot base robot, and I've got some pictures that'll show kind of how it's all built. But the basics are just a little bit of setup code. I wrote a few functions, like one that will count through all the addresses and see, how many times something's been passed, and a reset function. So let's say the first time that you're going to run this code, we want to reset all of the storage that's already on the Arduino so we can start counting. So to do that, we'll just uncomment this line, upload this code. For some reason, it's thinking it's ready to do a lot of them. Okay, so fixed it. Now it's been reset. So yeah, it tells us it's been reset, all that stuff. So I can go and exit out of this. I can re-comment that. And I can go and re-upload this code. Okay, so now I will just go back, open up the serial monitor, and it'll print out what the total count is. It should be 0, which it is. And the way this works, basically, the EEPROM is a series of 512 addresses, and each address can store a number from 0 to 255. So I wrote some code that handles, if I count above 255, move to the next address and store how many addresses I've stored numbers in and add it up into. So that's why this number is here. So right now, if we get into the code, basically I'm reading the distance from that ultrasonic sensor. I'm checking how far away it is. If it's less than 10 centimeters, I'm going to go ahead and increment my count. And then after I do that, I do some fun stuff with the EEPROM and writing to that and maybe moving addresses if I need. And I'll go ahead and show you how that works. So I'm right now putting my hand over the ultrasonic sensor, and you'll notice it's moving really fast, and that's because I'm keeping my hand over it. We could also write, so in the code comments, I talk about a way to basically prevent that. I kept that in there because it allowed me to test this really quickly. But basically, every time it sees my hand, you could either program in a delay, where it's going to wait a quarter, half second, or you could create a while loop that's just going to wait until I move my hand to index again. Anyways, so this counted up 86 values on the second address and 254 on the first address. So now, if I wanted to see what that number was, all I'd have to do is exit out of the serial monitor, open it back up, and at the very beginning it'll tell me 340, which I don't have a calculator, but I think that's right. So anyways, that's the code for this. It should be pretty robust. There's a few functions in here. You're welcome to explore, have your kids explore. Basically, one to count up through all the addresses. And to do this, I'm just looking at the very first address where I'm storing how many addresses I've written to, adding those up. I've got a function that's printing out the stuff nice and pretty because I like to make it clear and legible. And then I've got a function that's resetting the EEPROM. So overall, there's not a ton going on here, but it can seem a bit overwhelming. There's a lot there. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This code should be pretty robust to change. Like if you wanted to change how far away it was sensing, you could use this right here. One thing I'd recommend if you're using an ultrasonic sensor with something as small as a fork, either create a funnel that's going to make sure the fork or utensil falls into the right spot where the ultrasonic can see this and test that pretty thoroughly. Or you could have it where for somebody to deposit a utensil in the compost bin, they need to reach through the MOREbot frame, which could then count their hands. And counting hands is going to be a lot easier and a lot more reliable than counting utensils. Of course, there's the edge case of if they've got more than one utensil in their hand, but I'm imagining this won't be extremely accurate, just pretty close. Some considerations: so the EEPROM, each address only has a life cycle of about 100,000 writes. So the way I'm cycling over the EEPROMs, and with the number of them there are, you could write a lot, like 10 to the 12th number of counts. At the very minimum, you can do 125,000 before you cycle through all the addresses again, which isn't set up to handle. So really, 125,000 is pretty much your limit with this. But if you need to count more than that, it's a lot of utensils, and we can always talk about better ways to approach that. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This is pretty fun to work on. I'll go ahead and post this on Arduino Create and leave a link so you can just kind of check it out by yourself. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helps.